You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome in to another Locked On Wild Live here on Sunday, April 21st. We got playoff hockey on in the background here. Watched the games last night, and I got to say, I was impressed by the initial fight by the Islanders, but I think Carolina just is going to be too much. That felt like the Islanders giving Carolina as big of a fight as they could, and it still wasn't enough. And then Boston just absolutely laying the bricks to the Ryan Reeves and Connor Dewar led Maple Leafs, sets up a full day of action here in the Stanley Cup playoffs, which we'll talk about. We'll take your questions, of course, and we'll set up the full off-season content calendar, because the network gives us the option to go to 3 days a week. I think once the playoffs are done. In my humble opinion, there just is too much to talk about. Now, is that to say that there won't be times that I maybe take a week and just pre-record some stuff, and if it's slow, especially after the draft before free agency starts, yeah, I'll probably do that. But we will still, I think, be full steam ahead. Full steam ahead all off season. Now, Amanda catching the new intro. We do have a new one. And I dig it. So just so that everybody is keen in on this, I'll play it one more time.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's pretty cool, isn't it? That's I dig it. So that is just a new tweak. We'll be having more tweaks throughout the off season. But let's start with this. Great question from Amanda. So we're still gonna do the Sunday lives. We're probably just not going to do them weekly, because now that we have hit the off season, there will be plenty of weekends in which I will be out of town. So what I'm going to try to do is, I think Urban is right on here. I'm going to try to do bi-weekly. And if there are times where I'm not doing anything in particular, we may do more than that, but I'm going to set the bar at bi-weekly because my grandma is turning 100 next weekend. And so we're having a big party for that. Then the following weekends don't have anything on the schedule. The weekend after that is Mother's Day. So we're going to go bi-weekly. If we need to ratchet it up, we will. I want to still do these because I think this is an important part of this whole content puzzle, is to still have the live interaction, even if even if it's during the off season. And I think what we'll do too is we'll probably do a special one ahead of the draft. We'll have a few special ones that we do. Oh my gosh. Tampa Bay just tied it up off a hideous rebound. So yeah, we'll pencil these in for bi-weekly and we'll adjust as needed. As far as the rest of the content puzzle goes, for this off season, obviously some of the things that we're going to key in on We did the player evals last year. The content puzzle, the report cards. We're going to do the report cards again. I have kind of a spin on those that I'm excited to unveil. And so we'll do that. We'll do a bunch of draft primers. We're going to do actual profiles on probably the entire first round. And we'll sneak in some second rounders as well. So we're going to do that. I have some ideas for some stuff that can fill weeks. Like I want to do like a history of GM, like GM tenures for this team. I want to take a full week and like go through and here are the notable things that Fletcher did. Here are the notable things that Fenton did. Here are the notable things that Riseborough did. Like I want to take a full week to do that. Next week, this coming week is going to be all about diving into what went wrong this season. We can point to a lot of the things that did, but what I'm going to try to do too is figure out like how we go, like how it gets fixed. So that's going to be a full week's worth of shows this week, is looking at all the different categories in which things went wrong and trying to kind of figure out how to fix. Let's start with Zach. This is a good question because I think this is an important one, because I'm also calling this offseason. Oh, great shot by Hagel on the rebounds in the Tampa Bay, Florida game. I have some steps that I'm going to put out there for the Bill Guerin Goodwill Tour, because I kind of feel like we need one after the way this season went down. Vibes are not great around the team right now. After not, and the fact that the team didn't make the playoffs is like secondary. Honestly, I just was of the belief that this team, had they still found a way to sneak into the playoffs, that they were going to get boat raced by whoever they played. There are some things that Bill Guerin can do this offseason that I think will restore some of the faith in the fan base. And so I'll lay those out. And I think one part of that equation would be to have Murat Huznadinov and Liam Ugrin make the team out of camp. I think having those guys be part of the roster, considering what we saw from them over the last handful of games of the season, I look at what they were able to do, and they were able to more than hold their own. Huznadinov, especially on the defensive ends and just special teams wise, I think he could be a game one contributor next year on the penalty kill. I think if you have those guys on the roster, they're going to be able to impress, and they're going to be able to give you more than what you would expect. Now, are they going to have games where they maybe get overwhelmed? Sure. Rookies have that. Like, I think we just need to pencil them in on the team next year. Murat as your third line center, as minimum. Third line center and penalty kill feels like a perfect role for Huznadinov. And like that second line wing spot was just such a black hole for this team. I think if Ugrin can step in, the bar is not super high for production on that line. If he can give you 3 shots or more. And look, I know shots on goal is not a good indicator as to, overall performance. There are a ton of other things that go into it. But Marcus Johansson, while not providing the shots on goal, wasn't really giving you much else. So It just feels like those minutes were empty calorie minutes is really the best way that I can describe it. And so that has to be a spot of emphasis. And I will give credit. Bill Guerin talked about it during the exit interviews about the rookies coming in and scaring the vets, potentially taking their jobs. So if that is on the table, great. But I want to see it. I want to see that play out. You're not going to touch that first line, Kaprizov, Boldy, Eriksson Ek. That's penciled in next year as your day one line one. Rossi and Zuccarello are two of the components on your second line. And I just think with what you are looking for that spot, I would go Ugrin on the second line. You can bump somebody up if it's too much for him to handle that spot. Because then your third line, I think, could very well be Foligno, Kuznetsov, and Hartman. And I actually like how that's actually like the makeup of that line as your third line. And then Freddie, Mason Shaw, and probably Marcus Johansson. I don't know. Like, Marcus Johansson needs to show me a lot more for me to campaign for him to play any higher in the lineup. And honestly, I just would rather have the roster spot. And then for depth, you got Vinny Lettieri. You've got a few of those other guys in Iowa that will be there and just not necessarily on the roster. The other part of this that is being brought up, John mentioned it. A couple of others did as well. Danila Yurov, like, that's still hanging there. If he ends up deciding he's ready for the show, that second line wing spot is his. And then you can go probably Kuznetsov, Ugrin, and Hartman as your third line. And then, probably Marcus Foligno on the fourth. At the end of the day, the line combinations are more important than the number. And so that would be like, if Foligno plays fourth line or third line, it doesn't really matter. Just keeping those guys where they are naturally more suited and not having to try to bump them up in the batting order in the lineup. Urban Danila Yurov is 21. He was born in 2003. So he is actually 20 and will turn 21 on December 22nd. So Dumba not having a good time. One shift, he turns the puck over twice at his own blue line, and the later Florida possession draws a penalty. He's what you see is what you get at this point with Dumba. We knew that he was running out of juice, and Florida got him for the vibes, but the vibes can only carry you so far. Look at Ryan Reeves with Toronto yesterday. He was skating all over the ice, trying to get Boston players to bite. We saw, for the most part, now I know the Wild were able to win game one against Dallas last year. We saw a very similar result play out between Toronto and Boston, as we saw against the Stars last year, where the Wild are trying to kind of show that they are the more physical team, but Boston's like, we're just gonna play. We're just gonna play the hockey, score the goals, do all the hockey stuff. You guys can worry about the fighting and the physicality. Although what did they just had an insane number of hits in that game last night. I got to go see the number because I'm sure there were some players that absolutely just racked up insane penalty minute numbers. 5-1 win for Boston last night, and the hit counter 52 for Toronto, 51 for Boston. Are you kidding me? That's just an insane number of hits. Do we have anybody in double digits? Not for Toronto. The most Simon Benoit had 8. Simone Benoit had 8. And yeah, it was just a bunch. Pat Maroon played 11 minutes for the Bruins. He had an assist. He had 6 hits. It's a good hit to minutes played ratio in that one. Yeah, Maroon took that Toronto player and absolutely sent him head over heels into the bench. Like that was an insane hit. The giant goon strategy doesn't really work. You need a guy who's capable of putting up 40 points, who plays rough and can eat 15 to 18 minutes. Reeves getting 10 is worse than useless. Yeah, what did old Revo get? 7 minutes. He did have an assist somehow. And 2 shots on goal in 7 minutes, 31 seconds. Connor Dewar by extension. He had an assist. He had 1 hit. He played 12:27. Reeves played 7 minutes, 31 seconds. Yikes. Yeah, that's the Revo plan. I have 2 brackets so far. One is my realistic thoughts, and one is Vancouver versus. Oh my God, that would be something. That would be something else. I'm here for it. Like honestly, I just want to see chaos. That's why I didn't necessarily pick a winner this year, because for the first time since I took over the show, not having the Wild in it, like I wanted to just watch without really committing to winners. I just want to see some upsets. I just want to see some insane plays, some crazy goals. That's all I'm looking for. And playoffs are usually pretty good to supply that. Now in your games today, you've got Washington and the Rangers at 2, Colorado and Winnipeg at 6, and then Nashville and Vancouver at 9. I am going to go this route. I think the Rangers win game 1 today against the Capitals, although I think it'll have a similar feel to that Islanders Hurricanes game from yesterday, because Charlie Lindgren he's a good goalie. So I think he can at least keep it close to start, but I would imagine it's a similar feel, like a 3 or a 4-1, with the Rangers pulling away late. Colorado and Winnipeg tonight. Winnipeg is going to win that game 2-0. I think Connor Hellebuyck is going to go on the warpath in this series. Wild fans will remember the Jean-Sebastien Giguère goalie run. I think Hellebuyck does something similar to Colorado in this series. And I just like, I there are two factors I think in play in that series is the Colorado offense versus Winnipeg's offense, and then the goalie matchup. And I think I think Hellebuck and Georgiev like head to head is just a massive advantage for the Jets. So I think the Jets win that series pretty handily. And then honestly, going with the chaos between Nashville and Vancouver, I think the Predators, like they were on a roll at the end of the season. They were dead pretty much. They're pretty much dead during the regular season, but I think they steal one in Vancouver tonight. UC Saros, Ryan O'Reilly, you name it. I think Nashville will steal game one in Vancouver tonight. Yeah, I just it just comes down to trust. Urban is exactly right. Vancouver hasn't been in the postseason for a minute. I trust Nashville to be able to handle the spotlight better than I do the Canucks. Yes, the very same John, the very same Charlie Lindgren that I think. Let me just see here. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I'm pretty sure that is the very same Charlie Lindgren. God, he had a good year. Lakeville, Minnesota. 25, 16, and 7 with 2.67 goals against average, a 911 save percentage at 30 years old. And he just was a monster down the stretch for the Capitals. This is really this is the most amount of work he had in a season ever at age 30. Like last year, he got 26 starts. This year, he got 48. And I don't know what his contract is right now, but I would imagine he gets pretty good look. He gets a pretty good look this offseason and being part of Goalie Town, USA, the Otter and the Stash. He's got a pretty, at least on his ESPN bio, that's a pretty nasty stash, if I do say so myself. Yeah, the Ryan O'Reilly effect. Any thoughts on the goalie situation? I first thought the Wild would put Jesper up and ditch Flower or Gus, but at this point, I think there's no actual depth in net in the AHL that they can't do that. This is a great question because the Wild did. I just want to pull it up here. The Wild did make a couple of minor signings, but I think that speaks to here just the true lack of depth. Oh, come on, Cap Friendly. Pop-up ad that I can't get rid of because you take too long to do your thing. That's unfortunate. Yeah, I'm just pulling up. I don't remember the names. Oh, here. Okay, here we go. Samuel Levi was one of them from Slovakia. He's 22, was claimed on waivers, and signed a 2-year deal for $875,000 each season. I'm assuming this is a two-way. Oh, it's an entry level. Okay. Entry level contract. So he'll definitely be in Iowa as one of the goalies. And then there was another one that also signed because Zane McIntyre is an unrestricted free agent. And so I don't know if he'll be back, but Yeah, the Wild are they're just trying to because that if Jesper wasn't in net last year was not great for the Iowa Wild. So just trying to get a couple of didn't he I think you were sharing this in the Discord. Didn't he go like 3-14-1 in Iowa this year? That would lead you to believe that it's probably greener pastures time for old Zane. Yeah, his he had a 341 goals against average in 24 games and an 881 save percentage. Yeah, 4 wins. Ugh, that's not great. So they're just looking to kind of shuffle the deck. I think here's what I think is the plan for the goalie situation this year. I think Jesper will start the year in Iowa. I think the re-signing of Fleury was an attempt to just put Philip Gustafsson on notice. They'll start the season with both guys, with Gus and Fleury. But if Gustafsson continues to be inconsistent, Bill Guerin is not going to hesitate to ship him out because he's shown that he is he is not one to wait around and let things try to play out. If he doesn't think Gus is the guy, or if Gus doesn't show that that he's kind of starting to figure it out, he'll ship him. That contract from a goalie perspective is not 3.75 for a goalie. That is very easily movable. The New Jersey Devils, if Philip Gustafsson was officially available, the New Jersey Devils would give a pretty good heft to get him. They are that desperate for a goalie. Like, let's just look at their goalie situation here for a second. They got Capo Kähkönen and Jake Allen. Capo Kähkönen is an unrestricted free agent. And let's just see what he did with the Devils. I think he had a 2.5 goals against average in 6 games with the Devils and a 923 save percentage. So could they opt to bring him back? Sure. But if not, you're rolling with Jake Allen as your starting goalie. That would be a fit. There are other teams certainly that would be willing to pony up to get Gus if he became available, which is why I think we're going to see the Wild wait just to get one more chance to see if he is capable of upping his consistency and his conditioning too, and just his general overall like approach to his fitness. He'll be if he does that, he'll be a good goalie for this team with Jesper after the season is done. Yeah, that's the big rub, Aiden, is that his conditioning and his fitness in general just it's not where the team would like it to be. That's been consistent since he came here. And that's what the team wants. That's what the team wants him to improve upon. And honestly, like that's I think another reason that Fleury is back is because if you're looking to have a young goalie improve in those areas, Marc-Andre Fleury has been a pretty durable goalie throughout the course of his career, and he is in incredible shape at 39. And so we talk about Fleury being kind of a mentor to Jesper. I think they want him to really soak up how Fleury gets himself ready for game days, too. So he's back to mentor both guys and try to just to try to improve in that area. Yeah, I absolutely would love to get a final look at things for Iowa. So feel free to pop those in the old Discord, which I will link right now for those who have not yet joined and would like to. What is going on here? Why is it not letting me? Let's try this again. Weird. I will drop the Discord server invite link in the chat here in a little bit. Let's go to this. I'll answer Zach's first, then I will get to Sam's question. Picks that the Minnesota Wild have this draft. Where was it? So in 2024, they have a first, they have a second, they have a fourth, 2 fifths, and a sixth. The second 5th round pick is Buffalo's 5th round pick, and that was acquired in the that was an additional pick that was acquired in the Jordan Greenway trade. So you're telling me we got 2 picks for Jordan Greenway. We got the 2nd round pick last year that turned into Riley Height. And now we got a 5th round pick in this year's draft for Jordan Greenway. Okay, that's a fleecing by Bill Guerin. Like, my word. That is insane. Okay, here we go. There was weird stuff going on with the Discord invite link, but there it is. So those are the picks that we have. Again, if you have not already, celebrate the Jordan Greenway trade again. And like celebrate it one more time after that, because it was that aggressive of a and you want to know how Jordan Greenway finished the season with the Buffalo Sabres. He did get to 10 goals. Okay. He had 10 goals, 18 assists, 28 points in 67 games. So it was actually tied or second most goals he scored in a season. The 18 assists, middle of the road. 28 points was the second most he's had in a season. And he was a plus 11. So, okay, the numbers weren't as bad as I thought, but how does that compare to JoJo or Freddie? It's more than Freddie, because I think Freddie finished the year with, I don't want to look. I don't even want to look at this. Just depress me. Johansson had 11 goals, 19 assists. He had 30 points in 78 games. Goudreau had 5 goals, 10 assists, 15 points in 67 games. Hideous. Ick. Yeah, that's real bad. The Wild struggling with 5 forwards and 1 D when pulling the goalie. Playoff teams like Boston and Dallas seem to be able to execute that way better than the Wild. You are correct. And I think that stems from the general approach for this Wild team still being way too passive on special teams. Power play, how many times do we gripe about the power play not getting enough shots on net? Being too passive. You have to be on the attack in those situations. Like, you just have to default to being on the attack. Otherwise, if you try to force a pass by waiting, then more often than not, it gets intercepted by the opponent, and it ends up in an empty netter the other way. But I think, like, honestly, this was one of the points that I was surprised most by, is how much, like, how out of their way John Hines and Bill Guerin went to basically call the team soft in the exit interview. Like, and that's part of it too, is the year in which they 2 years ago, in which they had all those empty net goals. They just had a ton of swagger and confidence. And this year they had almost none. Like, anytime they faced any level of adversity, it folded up like a tent. And I think that's a legitimate problem, because I think there is a large portion of the team. Now, it's not everybody, but I think there's a large portion of the team that just, when the going gets tough, they look to Kirill to do everything. And like, well, I don't want to be the one to take a shot in case I miss. So I'm going to get it to Kirill. And that mentality's got to be wiped out, because you need to have more than like 3 options on the team. Dallas Stars, 8 players this year with 20 or more goals. They had 2 30-goal scorers. The Wild had 5 players with 20 or more goals, but they only had 3 players with 50 or more points. You got to have guys that are capable of taking the shots and hitting the target, and also are willing to shoot the puck. That's, again, that I feel like I keep going back to Marcus Johansson, but the number of times I saw this season him skate up to the front of the net, and instead of just even just letting a shot fly on the goalie, just letting one rip. It's not going to necessarily be a goal, but letting one fly on the goalie, at least making them think about it. And just seeing like no shot and a forced pass, like that stuff drives you crazy. But that's a huge problem with this team, is I'm not confident in my abilities to do this, so I'm just going to get it to Kirill and let him try. Don't be afraid to step up. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. The Wild were in the top 3 this year, I think, in shots that missed the net completely. So you take the entire volume of shots, I think it was 36%. 36% of the shots that the Wild took this year missed the net completely. So you are, right off the bat, you're tying one hand behind your back, because then you need to score all of your goals in the other 64%. But then 30% of that was all blocked. And the Wild were near the top of the list in terms of blocked shots too. So then you subtract 33% from there. And now you have a basically 31% chance of your shot getting to the goalie. And that's just not enough. Like, shot accuracy needs to be way better for this team. Foligno's contract worries me with the fallout even more now. I agree here. Like I said it, I think if you put Hartman as a third line guy, I think he's just fine. And the fact that he's kind of shifted back now towards more of a wing, even better. I appreciate the fact that he has filled in at center over the last few years, but I think he just is more naturally a wing. And so you give him the opportunity there. He scored 21 goals this year. And the big thing with him is just making sure that he doesn't go on any sort of big runs of penalty minutes. Like, he tends to run a little hot. Marcus Foligno played in 55 games this year out of 82. And for Foligno, just with the style that he plays, like, let's just look at the numbers here recently. Since he came to Minnesota, he played in 77 games his first season, which was 17-18. He played in 82 games in 18-19. And since then, he's played. Now, I know I don't recall exactly what the shortened numbers were for these seasons, because there were a few of them that were shortened due to COVID. But since then, he's played in 59, 39, 74, 65, and 55. Like, he is valuable when he's on the ice, but the problem is that he has trended more towards like 50% of the games than 80% of the games. That's where the worry comes in on that contract, because if, like, if you, what was the Mike Zimmer quote? You can't make the team in the tub. Guys are valuable if they play, but if they are injured and don't play, that's a problem. So that's I think that's going to be the biggest issue with Foligno going forward, is the number of games that he plays. If he can get closer to 70 games played a season, 70, 75, that's much better. But if he's between 50 and 60, like, that's an issue. What do the Wild do with the defenseman? Great question again, Zach. Let's take a look at what we got right now. And so, Jonas Brodin, locked in, not going anywhere. Jake Middleton. So those two are safe. Alex Goligoski is gone. I don't know if he's going to retire, but I don't think there's any way. I don't think there's any way that Goligoski is back, even if he decides to play another season. Like, he never played here. So I think he's gone. You got Brock Faber, you got Zach Bogosian. Declan Chisholm is in line for an extension this offseason, and I am very hopeful that the Wild give him one, because I think he's been really good, especially offensively. Like, it was weird because now it's all explained more in detail because of the fact that Brock Faber was playing with fractured ribs for 2 months. In that, Faber getting bumped off the top power play, I think, was more due to Declan Chisholm just having a real good feel for that unit. But now the fact that Faber played the final 2 months of the season with fractured ribs explains a lot of those issues. Folks, the captain has made it. Welcome in, Denny. We are very glad to have you. We're just going through the defense right now. I'm kind of laying the tone for what I think will happen with the Wild defenseman going forward. So Brodin, Middleton, Faber, Bogosian, those 4 are locked in. Those 4 are penciled in. Chisholm, I am very hopeful he gets a 2 or 3 year deal, because I think he developed a great foundation that he can build off of. The question is with the others. You've got John Merrill, who is locked in for one more season at $1.2 million. As Joe Smith said in his kind of season assessment with Michael Russo, he played okay down the stretch. I'm gonna take that wording. I feel like Merrill only stays if the prospects are not ready. If one of the prospects is not ready to hop up for full time. Dakota Mermis is an unrestricted free agent. The organization, I think, would love to keep him. But here's the problem. I think Mermis put enough on tape that he probably gets a bona fide NHL deal somewhere else. So my take at this point is that he will get an NHL deal somewhere else and thus will be leaving the organization. So that is a hole that needs to be filled. And honestly, like, John Merrill at this point, very much what you see is what you get, and what you get is not great. So I would also be very fine with that spot being opened up. Damon Hunt could fill one of those spots, I do believe. And so that's one spot filled. The other is Jared Spurgeon. And I got to be honest with you folks, even with Spurgeon yesterday at his end of season presser, or Friday at his end of season presser, I am not in any way confident in Spurgeon being ready to help this team out by the time the season starts next year. I have a 0% confidence in that as being an option. It's just so much surgery, and it's not a knock on Spurgeon at all. It's just such it's 2 surgeries that you're trying to come back from. If it was 1, I would be more optimistic. But the fact that it's 2 of them and it's a back and a hip surgery, I don't feel great about the prospects of that. Now, if he proves me wrong, he proves me wrong. But I don't feel good. I'm not confident in penciling that in going into next season, which leads me to believe that they will go try to get somebody to fill. Now, if Spurgeon starts the year on long-term injured reserve, you have that cap space to work with. Options that have been mentioned so far. You've got one of the 3 of maybe Shea, Pesce, or Gostisbehere. Let's just look at the numbers here. Brady Shea, 30-year-old Carolina. He's got 13 goals, 47 points in 80 games. His contract hit this season, or his cap hit this season, is 5.25. Other options include, see, these guys are on the older side. Tyler Myers, Jake Muzzin, they're both 34 plus. Now, is he yeah, of course, he's restricted. I was going to say Philip Hronek is 26. That's appealing, but he is a restricted free agent. Brett Pesce is 29. He's got 3 goals, 10 assists, played 70 games, about 20 minutes a night. His cap hit is 4.025. Brendan Dillon is going to be an unrestricted free agent. 8 goals in 77 games, but he's a mule. He's got a $4 million cap hit. I think I had identified Gostisbehere as it just made a lot of sense for this team. His cap hit this year is 4.125. He's 31, can play left or right defenseman. He had 10 goals in 81 games. He was, however, a minus 16. But plus minus, again, like, here's the other part of it too. I can't use plus minus as too much of a barometer because Steven Stamkos is a minus 21 or was a minus 21 this season. I would take him in a heartbeat. Like, it just really depends on the situations and things along those lines. Yeah, Muzzin. I figured there was something along those lines. Do we have enough cash to make a splash to sign any good free agents? Basically, right now, the Wild have, I think, $7 million in cap space heading into next season. But let me just check that math because that was pre-Fleury extension. Let me just see here. Current cap space, projected cap space. The Wild have projected $6.1 million of projected cap space this season, but you got to fill some roster spots. Now, having some of the youngsters fill those spots helps, but really the only way that this team has anything big to be able to throw at free agents is if Spurgeon starts the year on long-term injured reserve. Then you got that $7 million to work with to be able to do something with. Otherwise, it's going to be enough to fill out the roster, and that will pretty much be it. But this, just one more season of this, and then you'll have the cap going up a little more normally, because I think the expected bump for the cap this year is $4 million. Expected cap bump is $4 million. I would imagine it'll be more next season. If there are trades made too, that will free up additional room. But this is something that I learned here in the second half of the season. And this explains the explanation as to why Damon Hunt never came back up is pretty easy. Because you are granted 4 call-ups after the trade deadline is over without emergency status. The call-ups that they had after the trade deadline were Kuznetsov, Ugrin, Jesper, and Beckman. Now, Beckman not playing didn't really help that spot. I would have just rather he played, but those are your 4. Now, you could have made the argument that just use Hunt for one of those, but you do only get 4 after the trade deadline. Denny's been on the Jake Gensel train since before the season even started. So if it happens, we are going to have the coronation tour for the captain. He's going to be a free agent. And there is there is the tie to Gensel, obviously, here in Minnesota. The question's just going to be, is he willing to take a bit less to come here? If he does, do it. then put him in that second line spot and prosper. If he's willing to do it, I have absolutely no problem with that. I would like that. He'll probably get more from somebody else. So if he's willing to take less to come here, then pull that trigger. And obviously there's the Pittsburgh tie to Bill Guerin. There are ties here, certainly. Just depends on what he wants at this stage in the game. As Denny said, he has told every other team in the NHL he's not signing a contract or an extension. Spurgeon, long-term injured reserve. Trade Gus, sign Gensel and Pesce. Do you do it? Yeah, I would do that. Absolutely. You'd be foolish not to. If those are your choices, the Gensel route is hands down between the two. So will it happen? We'll keep an eye out because there's going to be a lot of free agency as there typically is. Just not necessarily for this team. So we'll see. But yeah, I think I hear the lunch bell calling. And so I am going to put a cap on today's Lockdown Wild Live. Appreciate everybody hopping in here once again. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you have not already, so you don't miss out on any content throughout the off season, full episodes, live shows. We got some other things. We got some other fun things that'll be going on throughout the off season too. Some short form content that I'm going to be rolling out as well. So appreciate everybody's support as always. I am excited to just watch playoff hockey the rest of the day, and we'll talk about it more on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Wilds. Still going to roll with Micheletti Mondays, even though the season is done. We're rolling with Micheletti through the offseason too, so we'll kind of get the scene set for the offseason and more here throughout the entirety of the week. You can find new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch you next time here on Locked On Wild.